Andrew holds a master's in couple and family therapy and brings a relational and systems based perspective, along with hands on experience in organic agriculture and traditional food preparation. More thing. Do you want to boost your energy, mental clarity, and focus in just 30 days? Click the link below so that you can download my free guide with 6 simple changes that are going to help you feel amazing and confident. And if you're ready to dive deeper and uncover the root causes of your symptoms, book your free 45-minute exploration call today at nutritionwithconfidence.com. All right, enjoy the interview. Andy, let's get back into the early days. What were your stomach issues like, and how did they affect your daily life?
Yeah, so I started getting these stomach aches when I was in middle school, and it was really intense pain. So it was like level 7 to 10 pain, and the closest thing I've heard to them is Crohn's disease symptoms. So they would come on out of the blue, seemingly, and I would just be in like level 7 plus pain. On a good day, it would last like 5 to 10 minutes. On a bad day, it would last an hour or 2 hours, kind of pulsing. I'd have to use a bathroom, uh, or else I would just be stuck in that pain. So I always had a lot of anxiety about traveling, being in cities, any sort of setting where I wouldn't have a bathroom. And so, yeah, middle school is kind of the origin. I remember driving home with a family friend from middle school baseball practice. I played baseball in middle school, and I remember one of them started to come on, and I was just in excruciating pain. And I remember my friend's mom was the one driving me home. She was just super concerned looking at me, just suffering. I was like, I, I got to get home fast, you know? And so that's one of many stories where I was just, yeah, suffering.
That sounds embarrassing too. Were
Yeah.
you at that time thinking something's wrong, or is this normal? What was going through your head then in middle school?
I didn't think too much about whether it was normal, abnormal. It's just, I was like, oh, I guess this is just part of life.
Wow. And then in high school you went to a gastroenterologist, is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah, tell us more
And
about
yeah,
that.
so I went to the gastroenterologist, and I did, stool tests. I did a myriad of tests, and basically the GI doctor said, we can't diagnose you with anything. And we don't know what to do for you. So I was like, oh, I guess I'm just, maybe making a big deal of this, and it really isn't as big of a deal as I'm, you know, experiencing it to be. But I mean, I have a pretty high pain tolerance. Like, I've done a lot of outdoor recreation. I summited Mount Rainier, which is like a very uncomfortable experience. Like, I had boots that were too small and lost my toenail, and it was uncomfortable. That was, it was painful, but like that pain like did not compare to these stomach issues. I mean, I had broken bones, but this was the worst pain. And so anyways, at that point, I just thought, I guess this is just what I have to live with. It's
Wow.
this is what it is. They don't see anything wrong with me. This expert, done these extensive
Yeah.
tests, and so here I am.
Yeah, and he basically told you you have to live with this in so many words. Maybe he didn't even say that
Yeah,
explicitly, but
he just said we can't diagnose you, so I can't treat you.
wow. And then, I mean, you've lived with this like almost your whole life. In college, you had situations too. Did
Yeah,
did things progressively get worse and more frequent?
that's a good question. I think they were always it was always just pretty consistent. It was like once or twice a month. I think it would kind of fluctuate, but
Mm.
some months maybe it's 3 or 4 times, but typically once or twice a month it would be these really bad episodes.
Mm.
And thinking back too, there was just like chronic stomach, like low level pain here and there,
Mm.
but like these really terrible stomach episodes. It was just a couple times a month, and Yeah, I'll tell another story. And this is one of just so many. But I was driving up to Big Bear with my friends in college, and up this windy road, mountain road, and one of them started to come on. Like I kind of feel this kind of flushing in my cheeks, and then I would start to kind of feel the pain, and it's just like, oh,
You know.
dang it, this is bad. And especially in a situation like that where I'm driving. I mean, we still have 45 minutes or an hour to go. Like, there's no way I'm making it to our destination in
Right.
Big Bear. And
Oh
so
man.
I have to tell my friends, I'm like, guys, I'm in a lot of pain right now. I need to pull over on the side of the road. And so I pull over on the shoulder. I run into the woods, the facilities, and I I do my thing out
Oh
there.
man.
And my friends are just like, whoa, like
That's
what's going, you're in a lot of pain. And yeah, those experiences were embarrassing to a level. I mean, those are like good friends, but still just embarrassing. Like there are situations where I'd have one come on with someone I didn't know that well, hiking. And this is
mm,
another example. And like, I was just like, hey, I got to go to the bathroom,
mm.
like run, in this scenario behind a rock. And like, and yeah, it's like,
Did it ever happen when we were dating? We're on a date
um,
and you had to go.
I actually don't think so. No,
Wow, lucky
luckily.
us.
Yeah, I
Well,
was
I
always
was
anxious about it.
I was dragging you around to all the healthy places to eat and eating healthy
Yeah,
things.
I guess so.
Well, kind of healthy things at the time.
Yeah.
Well, that sorry, did you want to say anything
No, that's
more?
it. That's just like there were dozens of those experiences where
Hmm.
I just didn't have access to a bathroom and I was like super anxious about it.
Yeah, and you were
'Cause,
trying to get help in the medical system and how to like you didn't get a diagnosis, so then you just kind of try to accept it, right? And
yeah,
did you even think about diet at the time?
no,
Did the gastro say anything
no.
about diet? I knew that answer.
Yeah.
I've heard this so many times with clients and it's very sad. But what changes did you make first? I'm curious. At what was the start of thinking diet could help?
Yeah, so it was actually when we got together. Natalie was eating more of a plant-based diet at the time, and I'd never thought about the foods I was putting into my body. I would just
Hmm.
try to find the most affordable foods and the most tasty looking foods and eat them.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, so it was kind of environmental reasons, to be honest. I started looking into how terrible our food system was. Actually started dumpster diving for a period of time, but I started supporting like local farms with the CSA, community supported agriculture,
Yeah.
and started to get more vegetables into my diet because that was the dominant discourse, right?
Hmm.
Okay, I'm going to start eating healthier. I'm going to start making better decisions for the environment, like start eating more plant foods. So I started eating more plant foods, and I would still get the stomach issues. Granted, I was still eating a lot of garbage too. I was still eating literal garbage from the
Actual,
dumpster diving, which
you
but
dirtbag.
but yeah, but I was eating pizza, I was eating processed foods, I was eating highly sugary foods. Donuts were my favorite. Still eating donuts. So,
Hmm.
but that was the first shift where I was like, okay, environmentally, it makes sense to eat more whole foods, eat more vegetables. Probably good for my health too. And those are the initial small steps into some level of consciousness around what I ate.
Hmm. Absolutely. And we both kind of got exposed to the GAPS diet. Well, I got exposed first. So tell us about how you first heard about the GAPS diet and first decided to try it.
Yeah, and I think even before that, I would just want to say a bit more on my experience with a plant-based diet
Yeah.
before we got into GAPS, because it was about a year there where and then we were living in Hawaii for about 2 months doing work trade on an organic coffee farm, and in the Puna district of Hawaii where we were, there's a very very big plant-based community. Veganism was a huge thing there. There's all the tropical fruits, and so we kind of drank that Kool-Aid. I never went totally vegetarian or vegan, but I was really close for about 6 months to a year. And all my problems were still there. I still had the stomach issues. Um, I dealt with depression. I was diagnosed with persistent depressive disorder in college, and I was still dealing with some of that low mood, just like low level
Mm-hmm.
depression, low energy throughout the day. I would feel tired all the time,
Yeah.
and uh, the ups and downs with blood sugar, So I I felt a little better, I think, when we did plant because I was starting to eat more whole foods, right? And we
Mm-hmm.
were doing work trades where we were getting a lot of whole vegetables and really shifting how we ate, eating a bit of fish too here and there, but starting to feel a little better, but there was still like a number of significant symptoms for me at that point. And then
Yeah.
yeah, with gaps, so Natalie did the gaps something in my throat.
Drink some water?
Natalie, yeah, probably should.
Me too.
Um, Natalie did the GAPS diet, and she told me, "You got to do this." It changed my life. You had done like a modified GAPS intro diet for about a month, and I'd never thought about doing a diet. I was just thinking, why would I do? I didn't even really do the diet for my stomach issues. I didn't think it would actually help them. Oddly enough, I just you said it was helpful for you, and I thought, what do I have to lose? Why not just go for this?
Yeah.
So that was a wild experience because I went straight up. I kind of ate more processed foods and sugary foods before I did the diet in preparation for not having those foods during that period of time. So I did like standard American diet on steroids, loads of donuts and processed foods, and then I did the GAPS intro, which
Yeah.
is, for those who don't know, it is soups, breakfast, lunch, and dinner, made with homemade meat stock. You've got meat that's cooked in the broth, and then you have non-starchy vegetables, and like that's all you're starting with. So it's it's kind of like an elimination diet in ways, and it really strips away all the junk. And
Mm-hmm.
the detox symptoms I had were unreal. I was working in construction at the time, and I just remember just having to walk, 100 yards or so, and it just being so difficult. And I'm someone who's done through hikes on the PCT at this point. I've done 20 miles a day with, 20, 30 pounds on my back. And, you know, I'm, I'm in such intense fatigue, and I was prepared, right? You told me I would experience this. The nutritionist who we had done some work with said, you're going to experience detox, but I was hurting. I was like barely making it. And, that was about maybe 4, 5, 6 days in where it was the worst. And then what I experienced was a gradual increase in energy, and things kind of evened out. So at the end of that month, I reflected back and I said, I didn't have a stomach episode that whole month. I was like, I've probably gone a month before without it, because part of me didn't want to give up my donuts. But then I, yeah, following that, I went back to eating the standard American diet, and then
Yeah.
I'd kind of yo-yo back and forth for
Mm-hmm.
a couple years. And
Yeah. So you had a significant sugar withdrawal
oh yeah,
when
yeah,
you,
I was
because
very
you went
addicted to
from
sugar.
eating cold turkey donuts to, and there are different ways to do the GAPS intro, but you did it like to the book, with
Well,
like three
yes
to
and
four
no.
days,
Yeah,
like
we
meat
my
stock
understanding.
soups, but it was more like there, you, at the time we were doing like higher carbohydrate soups,
Yeah,
a
we
lot of
were.
vegetables,
Hmm.
a lot of vegetable soups and things like that, and that was still die off for you.
Yeah. Yeah. And my understanding with the GAPS diet is if you really do GAPS intro properly, you stay on each stage
Until you
until your
progress.
symptoms are like completely
Mm-hmm.
gone, and then you progress. And so we didn't do that. We kind of did an accelerated version where we do each stage for just like a set period of time. I think it was about a week. And yeah, it was still incredibly beneficial and helpful to
Yeah.
me. And my stomach issues went away during that time. And I
Yes.
didn't even pay attention to that because I was so preoccupied with all my die off symptoms. I think I had like pretty bad loose stools and whatnot to as
Mm-hmm.
die off. But then, like I said, the last couple weeks, I felt really good.
Yeah. Wow. So, and then you said that you did some yo-yoing. You went back to why did you go back to the processed foods a little bit, and
I
what
was
what was
addicted.
going?
I was addicted to the donuts. I was
Yeah.
addicted to sugary foods, and they're all around. It's so hard to eat well because even after that month, my microbiome, I'm imagining, had shifted a lot in terms of the homeostasis of my gut bacteria. But those opportunistic bacteria that feed
Mm-hmm.
on the sugars, uh, they were still there, and so they were beckoning me. So the moment I finished up, I was like, oh, I should probably keep doing this. But then a couple weeks later, I was back on the
Mm-hmm.
sweets, and
Tell us
yeah.
about the conversation you had with Stacy about committing to 2 years to full gaps.
Yeah, I mean, I remember just kind of trying to bargain with her. I'm like, but do you really have to do this to feel good? What if I did 75% and still ate my pizza and donuts 25% of the time? And she said, well, for some people that'll work,
Mm-hmm.
but some people really need to be more dialed in for a longer period of time. That ended up being me. I eventually realized that was me, but yeah, initially I was just, a part of me really did not want to give up the sweets because not only was my gut microbiome, those bacteria yelling at me to eat those foods, but also uh, they're just everywhere. And then I had so many positive experiences with my family. Like I can tell you,
Yeah.
you know, 4 different donut shops that my family would go to regularly, and it was just a really special experience with my parents, with my sister, and food is so connecting. And when it's processed food that's like highly addictive too, then I associated those relational connections, those times where I felt at peace and calm and like on vacation with my family. Uh, I connected that with eating those foods. And so a
Mm-hmm.
part of me had associated that comfort with that food when actually it
Mm-hmm.
was just the relational connection, right? And so I'm
Yeah.
still connected with my family, and we have those experiences with healthy food now. But
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, that was another piece.
I mean, we've heard people talk about the science of how sugar is more addictive than
In our
cocaine.
interview with Dr. Shammy, right?
Yes.
Yeah, highly recommend listening to that interview. We'll link it.
Yes. And I've heard this kind of joke, or it's not a it's a sad joke, but we're basically sitting around growing up with, having these amazing experiences with our families doing drugs, like doing
Yeah,
cocaine, if you can
yeah,
kind of think of it like that,
that's
that
interesting.
we are going to have to process that a little bit. Well, I want to get into that in a little bit, but what helped you decide to get to finally do the 2 years gaps, full gaps, no starch, no sugar, very limited fruit, because you can overeat fruit even
Yeah.
though it's on the gaps diet. And what were the changes that you saw?
Yeah, so Stacy planted the seeds. That was the first nutritionist we connected with. And then we connected with Mary Ruddock. You were doing supervision with her at the time, and she had this 2 year, yeah, no starch,
Mm-hmm.
no sugar, from even like a limited amount with fruit, I think, or even no fruit. I think
Mm-hmm.
I had a little fruit in that 2 years, but not much. And yeah, just meat and non-starchy vegetables pretty much. And I had yo-yoed back and forth so much, and every time I'd go back to the processed foods, I would get stomach issues. And also I had said in my mind, okay, if I just eat whole foods, I stay away from processed foods for a period of time, my symptoms will go away. And they didn't. I was working, volunteering at an organic farm at the time while I was in graduate school. And I was getting unlimited tomatoes and potatoes, and I was just
Mm.
going to town on these potatoes and tomatoes. And I got another stomach episode while eating those. And you had always told me, Andy, it's the combination of everything. And I was like, no, it's the one thing. I'm going to find it. I'm going to get it out of my diet, one food. and then I'm not going to have these stomach issues. But it is a number of things for me, and that experience is actually really powerful because I said I am just eating whole foods, and so that was what prompted me to do that 2 years of no starch. There's no nightshades too. We didn't
Right.
do
Lectin
nightshades,
free
lectin free. Yeah,
gaps is what we did.
yeah,
No, yeah, low lectin gaps. And those lectins are the sticky proteins in the nightshade vegetables like peppers, and eggplant and zucchini, even cucumbers. So those foods that, and we weren't sticking to, the starches, the potatoes, like a lot of those are not on gaps. And so, even when you compiled those, trying to just be whole foods, you did a lot of too much of the starch, too much of the lectins
yeah,
too. And there's other plant toxins in those groups of foods as well that it compiled this inflammation for you. And then you had even just not even eating processed foods, you had an episode. So it doesn't. So tell us about that 2 year process and what were the benefits and the challenges.
yeah. So I mean, the benefit was in that 2 year period, I had none of these stomach episodes. Completely put
Woohoo!
into remission, right?
It's
And
amazing.
I every time I did the modified gaps intro or really dialed in my diet when I was doing that yo-yo period, I did just feel uh, clear with my thought, more persistent energy throughout the day, and that wasn't something that I thought, the mental health piece. I didn't think that would diet would affect that at all,
Mm-hmm.
but that was a huge shift for me. I had consistent energy throughout the day. Stomach issues were gone, which was even though it's difficult to eat in a countercultural way because everyone's trying to bring you on because everyone's so addicted to the sugars and processed foods that they want you to join them. And when you say, sorry, I'm not doing this, some people have a hard time with that. And it's hard to go eat out and eat the way that we were eating. So you really had to dial in. I mean, luckily we had really supportive family and friends too that understood what we were doing, and so it wasn't too difficult. But yeah, that was a major shift, and but it was totally worth it because I was feeling the best, and just to not have to worry about one of those stomach aches coming on, like just that made it 100% worth it. So
Wow.
yeah.
And when did you realize you're in remission?
I think, yeah, towards the end of those 2 years, I was just reflecting on, wow, I haven't, year and a half in, and I haven't had any of these stomach episodes. Like, what I am doing is working,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
I've done a lot of experimentation up to this point. I haven't done an experiment this long with how
Mm-hmm.
I've eaten, but this way of eating is allowing my gut to heal, right?
Yeah. And you, even after the 2 years, okay, after the 2 years, well, you've been symptom free now for 4 years,
Yeah, four
right?
years
So
without one of those stomach episodes.
are you still like what did you do right after the 2 years?
I didn't shift too much because we'd done it for so long
Mm-hmm.
that I just kind of made it a lifestyle, and I did
Mm-hmm.
start to, incorporate a little bit of it just kind of as an experiment. I was like, can I have a little bit of gluten? Can I
Mm-hmm.
have a little bit of peppers, tomatoes,
Mm-hmm.
what nightshades? And yeah, I learned that I could tolerate certain foods in certain amounts, basically, and
And
yeah.
processed certain ways too.
And process certain ways. Yeah, and I've basically come to understand that ultra processed foods are not even foods. I don't consider them foods. I don't
Mm-mm.
consider seed oils, highly processed seed oils, as foods. They should not be consumed by human beings. And so
Mm-hmm.
uh, I don't even consider those as foods anymore. But
Mm-hmm.
like a, a loaf of bread, actually sourdough, because
Mm-hmm.
there's breads that are labeled as sourdough in the store that are not actually fermented. So one that's fermented, made of wheat that is an heirloom variety, because there's only two varieties of wheat that are typically grown in the
Yeah.
United States that are very high in gluten. Not
Right.
only that, but the gluten molecules are different than the other gluten molecules and harder on the GI system. So, heirloom variety of wheat, maybe einkorn flour, that sort of thing. I can tolerate those. We traveled in Italy, and at first I was really hesitant to have gluten, but
Yeah.
I experimented and I ate gluten for 2 weeks, and towards the end, pretty high quantities, and I felt okay, right?
Yeah.
So that period where I really dialed in, where I really showed restraint, allowed my gut to heal to the point where I can tolerate some of these foods that before it would just be like instant GI
Symptom.
distress. Yeah.
Mm. Yeah, and then I think I mean, what you were just describing about being able to have food freedom now, that, and you're just much more picky though. Like, we're all going to have to practice restraint to be healthy in our modern existence, because like you said, everything is addictive in the grocery stores, the processed foods, what's available to us, and what's the norm is unhealthy. So we're all going to have to be picky to some degree. And now you have more freedom, and you're also still dialed in, and it's crazy. When we both started the 2 year, we were just really unsure if we would be able to make it, and whether or not we would enjoy how we were eating at the end of it still, but our gut microbiomes changed so much during that time that we actually don't crave those foods anymore. It really healed a lot of the addictive nature of those foods. Most of what we, reminisce about, if at all, with like family and things like that, is just the feeling about it, not even really the eating of the food. Like, we don't crave the food. It's just in our head, this idea of having bread or something like that. So tell us, how did this healing journey affect your identity and your view of your own body?
Hmm. I think it made me realize that there, with any system, whether that's our internal physiological system, or whether it's the landscape, that a farmer is farming, any system has needs. And I guess in terms of identity, I realized that being the human that I am, my body needs certain things, and
Mm,
there's a certain context that will support my body. So I guess just that, I don't know, identity as a human, like
mm,
connecting more to what it is to be human.
cool.
Because I think I was so lost with that growing up in the suburbs of Chandler, Arizona, riding BMX bikes, with my friends kicking over trash cans. It's kind of a novel, like, experience to grow up with, and like the social dynamics of school and all the stress there. And then just eating all this junk that contributed to my GI issues, and honestly contributed to my mental health problems with
Mm,
depression. I think I studied marriage and family therapy in grad school, and so I fully acknowledge the power of the nuclear family system, our immediate families, and then our society, our social circles, in profoundly impacting our internal well-being, our psychological well-being, our emotional well-being. I still believe that's the case. It's a powerful lever, but learning more from Dr. Chris Palmer, from Dr. Georgia Ede, both really intelligent psychiatrists who have come to the understanding that diet has a profound impact on mental health. Literally, stories of people with psychosis, hallucinations, seeing things, delusions,
mhm,
beliefs that are not in touch with reality, the belief that someone is going to attack you, like major depressive disorder. Those disorders literally being reversed on a ketogenic
mhm,
diet,
mm.
right? So when we give the body what it wants, it will heal. So I don't know if that fully answers the question of identity, how it shift, but just
Mm.
like the
Mm-hmm.
that there that I am a human with
Mm-hmm.
certain needs. I guess I don't know.
That's awesome. What about any challenges with the sticking to the 2 years? Like, did you deal with any grief or anger during or after healing? And especially like around not getting the support you needed in the medical system or your family, even?
Yeah, I mean, I think that was the biggest frustration is with the system that we're in. The fact that I went to multiple doctors growing up, that GI doctor, and they just basically dismissed my symptomology and couldn't give me any help, not even any direction. No,
Yeah.
no,
They couldn't even
no.
say, maybe try changing your diet.
Yeah, they didn't give diet as an option, and that is ridiculous because it literally
Yeah.
cleared up in in a month. Like,
It's so quick for digestive
it's so
symptoms.
that's what you've told me. And
Mm-hmm.
so I mean that's my biggest frustration is okay, as a kid I was, and it's no fault to my parents, they were doing the best they could and I ate better than other people, but I was eating breakfast cereals most mornings, right? These corporations have marketed to children literally setting them up for diabetes, for heart disease, for mental health
Issues.
disorders and issues. Like these foods that are marketed to children, it's an evil thing. You know,
Yeah.
we're setting up kids to suffer. And so
Right.
I definitely have a lot of frustration towards the powers that be in the system, our food system, um, and and then the Western medical system that doesn't look at a holistic picture and root cause and acknowledge the complexity, acknowledge that we can't know certain things, right?
Yeah.
There's just all these experts in silos that sometimes are helpful. Sometimes we definitely need Western medicine when we have acute issues. Undoubtedly, if I break my femur, I want to go to a Western medical doctor, not a nutritionist. But most people need a good nutritionist and or a coach that can work with them on lifestyle pieces because these are the
Yeah.
most important levers. So frustration with what I grew up with, and then yeah, the lack of treatment I got was
Mm.
the biggest emotional piece.
Yeah. It's such a trauma for a lot of people who end up finally finding help with nutrition or
Yeah,
other lifestyle things, and we'll get into that next. But healing that piece of not getting what you needed from the system, switching it into a huge gift because
mm,
it was a way for you to step up into your own power of
yeah,
no one's going to save you.
yeah,
And that's the illusion in our system, is that a doctor is your hero, but
yeah.
you have to be the
And
hero.
I have to mention there are interviews with Dr. Natasha Campbell McBride, with Dr. Myhill, I believe, and Mary
Mm-hmm.
Ruddick. They all said the same thing. Our symptoms are a gift, which sounds really terrible when you're
Going through it.
when you feel stuck, when you have really intense. And I know my symptoms were really painful, but some people experience just another level of chronic illness and pain and suffering. And so it's hard to tell that to somebody when they're in the thick of it, but it really is our body telling us something is wrong.
Yeah.
Do something.
Yeah. Take back your power. So after GAPS, you shifted into some other lifestyle practices. So like intermittent fasting, and actually this was also more dietarily. You did some keto
Yeah.
diets. What was this? What spurred this on, I guess, in that transition, and how did you feel?
Yeah, so I was just excited at this point about experimenting with diet, and you had done the ketogenic diet, and we're learning about how powerful it was. And so I thought, let's try it. You know, I like experimenting. Let's see how I feel doing this. So the first time I did the ketogenic diet was actually not a good experience. I went hard into it. You know, I got my ketones above 1.5 with the blood ketone test and above, and I started to get loose stools. And at the time, I was working as a therapist, and I really could not have
No,
that
no dealing
happen
with that.
while I was seeing a client. You know, I really did not want that to happen. So I stepped away. So I just did it for a couple of weeks, and I'm like, okay, well, maybe this isn't for me. And then I don't remember, when did I
It's,
do it after that? Do you remember?
I don't
Uh,
know. Sometime
some
in the 2 years, I guess.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So
Hmm.
I decided, okay, you had learned about psyllium husk as a way to uh,
Bind the stool.
bind the stool and kind of prevent that from happening while you're getting into ketosis initially. So I did that. Uh, and that worked for me completely.
Hmm.
And then once I had been in deep ketosis for a couple of weeks, I was able to go off the psyllium husk and no longer have loose stools. So uh, I yeah, I did that for 3 months. Therapeutic levels of ketones, 1.5 millimole per deciliter and above, and I, yeah, that was another level of. And then I was doing intermittent fasting as well in conjunction with that, and that was another level of calm. This level of peace and calm, and just having another just just a little edge off of the anxiety and depression that I had experienced. Just it just took the edge off, and so that was really powerful, you know. And a lot of these spiritual, religious traditions, like you know, fasting is a
Yeah.
major piece, and it is amazing. It's really powerful to step into producing ketones, and it really is a spiritual experience for me. So I continue to fast, do 24-hour fasts, or sometimes a little longer, a couple times a year,
Hmm.
because it is a spiritual practice where I kind of fast from media as well, and take in uh, um, more of the natural world. You know, I pause more and just like meditate, focus on the present moment, connecting with the divine. And
Hmm.
yeah, that was another pivotal shift for me when I experimented with the ketogenic diet, because yeah, it's always a tool that's there for me now if my mental health is not doing great. You know, I
So
know exactly
helpful.
what I'm going to do. I'm going to go into ketosis.
That's powerful. It's great to learn these other tools that, on top of the diet, that's a foundation, but then these other tools. So, what is another tool? Like, you mentioned the importance of sunlight, I guess. And so, what has this role played in your healing journey? And how do you regulate your circadian rhythm? Like, what are these tools that you use for circadian rhythm?
Yeah, so learned this from Dr. Andrew Huberman initially. He was, you know, he's done great work in bringing uh, bringing this information to the public, because there's good research on the importance of getting
Mm-hmm.
sunlight first thing in the morning. So I learned, you know, it's important to at least get 20 minutes of sunlight as soon as you can after you
Mm-hmm.
wake up,
Mm-hmm.
and get it as much on your skin as you can, on your eyes, not looking straight into the sun. You don't need to do that, but just being outdoors, even on a cloudy day, the UV light that you get from being outside versus indoor lights is an incredible difference. Like there's
Mm-hmm.
nothing that can mimic it. So
Yeah.
getting out first thing in the morning. I mean, it's such a great way to start the day too. Or just going on a walk is what we typically do. Some days, if
Mm-hmm.
we're really crunched with time, we will just eat out on the porch. And alternatively, even in the winter, we're out there, you know, bundled
Snuggled
up.
up.
Yep, getting our morning sunlight, and it really does play a huge difference in how I feel throughout the day and my energy levels, especially in Southern Oregon during the winter months. We have a lot of overcast, and if I do
Mm-hmm.
not get outside, I feel much worse. I feel
Yeah.
a lot worse mentally, a lot less clarity, and
Mm-hmm.
so it's
Mm-hmm.
yeah, it's huge. It's really helpful for sleep as well. So
Mm-hmm.
morning sunlight, and then sunlight as much as I can throughout the day has been really important for me.
Yeah. So you mentioned sleep. So tell us about your sleep journey a little bit.
Yeah, so this is like an ongoing process for me. I recently was diagnosed with mild sleep apnea. So I felt so much better doing all of these dietary interventions that I've talked about. It was night and day, but I still did feel a bit fatigued, a bit tired. Sometimes I feel lightheaded. and a little bit of depression. Although the depression is so much better, and it's not something that I would say is a problem. Just occasionally feeling a little more
Tendency
down.
towards like maybe
Yeah,
negative bias or something
yeah,
more.
and that's all just very common for people with sleep apnea. So
Yeah.
I'm kind of early on in this process. I did all the sleep hygiene things, right? So I started off with, having a impeccable nighttime
Routine.
routine. Is very calming. Getting away from the blue lights. But yeah, still just feeling a little fatigued and tired throughout the day. So I'm really early on in this journey of working on my sleep. So I got a CPAP, and I've had such a hard time with it. I've tried it numerous nights, and I just haven't been able to get asleep with it because it just feels claustrophobic and uncomfortable. And so I'm still going to try that a bit more. But they have MAD devices that are oral appliances, and there's also postural therapy where you really focus on sleeping on your side. And so it's going to be a year or so long journey where I focus on
Get
this.
that dialed in.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because people who have sleep apnea have a much higher increase in heart disease. So
Mm-hmm.
it's really important that you get yourself assessed if you suspect sleep apnea at all. Even if
Yeah.
you don't, just maybe do a preliminary
Mm-hmm.
assessment to make sure. If you feel tired, if you fall asleep while you're reading, watching the television, if you feel, fatigue, low energy, depression throughout the day, ADHD, even excitatory anxiety, that can even be connected to sleep apnea. So,
And the digestive
mm,
symptoms,
mhm.
the connection there with having probably sleep apnea. We were watching a home video with of with your family,
Yeah.
and it was of Andrew when he was really little, and they took a video of him and he's sleeping with his mouth open, and they're all like, "Oh, it's so
Yeah.
cute." And Andy and I have read, James Nestor's book Breath, and we're aware, we're like, and he did the sleep apnea test just earlier this year, and we watched that. We're like, oh my goodness, this is a huge connection, because when you do not have the melatonin production or the sleep regeneration process, this impacts the water in the stool. So you can get a lot of loose stools or just gut issues. So yeah, anyways, there's a
Yeah.
huge connection there.
Another thing I'll mention is memory too, because
Mm,
what is happening for me is I'm waking up 5 to 10 times every hour, and so my body can't get into deep sleep to stage 4 to REM, which is when we consolidate memory. So if you have difficulty like me remembering people's names, remembering
mm,
just data, I always struggled in school,
mm.
and actually, as a young kid, I actually like had traumatic experiences because I was struggling in school, and the teacher like reprimanded me in front of the whole class. Uh, so it was because of sleep apnea
Yeah.
that was happening,
Yeah.
and yeah, it's just it's crazy
So the
how important sleep is.
sleepapnea.org is where you got an at-home
No,
sleep test. It's not like the standard
yeah, not the gold
gold
standard.
standard, I
Yeah,
mean, but it was, if you have a positive, it's a positive.
yeah.
They have a little, there is a small percentage of people who get a
I
negative
think
with
it's
that.
20% false negative. So
False
you
negative. Yeah.
actually have it. 20% of people actually would have sleep apnea. They
Mm-hmm.
would take this test and it would be negative.
Negative.
So
So
if you're going to
if
do it and get a negative, it doesn't mean you don't have it.
maybe still pursue
Maybe
something else
look
for,
into what the gold standard is. I forget what
yeah,
it's called.
for
Some
the
acronym.
assessment.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I just think that's so crazy to connect this. You've been working on your sleep with lifestyle for so long during the gaps, and it's just at a certain point you can't diet harder. And it's not just diet. Obviously, there's so many other factors that play a role in our health, and I love, trying to help triage with my clients, getting to the root and thinking outside the box, not just nutrition, and being very comprehensive. It's so important because
Yeah.
I'm seeing this in a lot of my clients too. Not necessarily sleep apnea, but other things, other factors that can play a role. So, but what are you I guess if we kind of, you were talking about your memory and things like that. And, how I think that this plays a role with like our brain and our nervous system as well, like the sleep issues that you described. So, what role of the nervous system regulation practices do you do now, or like did you do them during your diet change? And what would you, yeah, I guess what would you recommend for people to do regarding that?
Yeah, I mean, the big thing I focused on, I think, while I was doing the dietary changes was the evening routine. And
Mm,
that's what I would focus on. I just focus on the morning and the evening first, because the morning, just getting out in the sun is the only thing I'd focus on starting off. And then in the evening, focusing on what do you enjoy doing that's relaxing. I know some people say not to read books and whatnot. And especially, I think reading books, especially stimulating books in your bed, is not optimal because you can associate that excitement with the place that you're sleeping. So
mm,
maybe not that, but reading for me is very relaxing. So I will read in the evening. Um, the having the blue light glasses on, blocking glasses on, and then I do the 4-7-8 breathing. So in for 4 seconds, hold for 7, and out for 8. That's regulating. Sometimes I'll just focus on doing the belly breathing. Um, I'll do. I've studied internal family systems and done a lot of that work, parts work, getting connected with the different parts of us. I've done that myself. It's been really helpful. So I'll just take some moments to meditate and tune in to my internal world and see what's going on for the different parts of me. I've done guided meditation. So just all
mm,
an experiment. But yeah, just, typically I'll put aside at least an hour in the evening to do something not on a screen before bed, something that's relaxing and soothing.
mm.
Recently been getting into qigong, doing these simple movements guided, by either a practitioner in person or, um, someone on
Yeah,
YouTube.
YouTube.
And then lastly, the most important thing for me has been time in nature. I've had the most spiritual moments for me out in the wilderness, alone and with you, with others. And so taking time to go outside into the woods by a creek, and intentionally just sitting there and listening. I love the five senses meditation when I'm out in the woods.
Mm,
So tuning into each sense for, a minute or so. If I have more time, I'll do 5 to 10 minutes with each sense, and just tuning into where I am, and the life around me is
mm,
incredibly regulating for me.
mm-hmm. Yeah. What about cold exposure? Do you do any of that?
Yeah, I've been doing that for a couple years. I do cold showers, and cold showers are really hard. A lot of people say they're more difficult than doing an ice bath and doing a cold bath. You don't even have to do an ice bath. You could just do a bath with cold water, or getting into a river, that sort of thing, because the water's splashing on you and you're going in and out, and it's not as pleasant. But I will do, especially in the summer months, I almost exclusively do cold showers unless it's in the evening, because it gives me energy. So yeah, I'll try to do 3 minute plus cold shower.
Mhm.
I'll do, for a while we were getting together with people every week or every other week and getting in Little Applegate River here in Southern Oregon, and that was a fun social thing. We'd all get psyched and get in.
Yeah.
Some of us would really dunk in for 34 or
Mm-hmm.
5 minutes, and some people would, just kind of get their feet in or half their body in. And yeah, what a cool thing.
Such
And
a
it feels so good. You just feel so alive. and talk about being mindful in the present moment. That's,
Yeah.
I think, for nervous system regulation, it really forces you into the present moment.
Hmm.
So that's quite nice.
I always think about just being human too, that we would be bathing in these rivers
Yeah.
and that's just our norm. That would have been our norm. So it's a cool experience to get back into it, doing it with friends more regularly because it's like just what humans would have done. We would have just been hanging out in nature,
Yeah.
getting in raw water when we need to. What do you um with I guess what would you say to your younger self? Like, what are the things that you wish you knew then that you could tell your younger self?
If you change the way you eat, your stomach aches will go away, and your mood you'll feel much better.
Yeah.
Um,
Do
yeah,
you?
just that you can heal. There's not, and especially with the sleep apnea too. That I'm really like, there's nothing like wrong with you, because I developed this shame story when I was a kid of there's something wrong with me, like inherently wrong with
Mm,
me, and that's been like one of the most destructive narratives and burdens that I do experience. So I would tell that person, that younger me,
mm-hmm.
you know, there's nothing wrong with you. It's the environment. It's what you've been exposed to that is causing these problems.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with you.
Mm, I love that. Just wash over you. There's nothing wrong with you.
Yeah.
What do you wish more people understood about undiagnosed gut issues?
Yeah, just I mean that just so you don't have to live with it. Like I said, one month of me just putting a bit of effort, and it didn't cost a ton of money. It's like eating healthy is pretty affordable. I think on average for us, I've done some calculations, about $4 a meal for to eat really healthy, like local grass fed, regeneratively raised beef, poultry, eggs, vegetables. Like we get 95% of our food within a 100-mile radius of our place, or even closer. And so,
Mm,
you know, just make one small change at a time, and or get connected with someone that can really help you make a significant change. Someone like Natalie or her colleague Alex can help you change quickly, right? You can find all this information online. It's just going to take you a while,
mm,
but Natalie and Alex are really good at just getting down to the root cause quicker and helping you get quicker
mm-hmm.
results. And so, yeah, I mean, anyone with stomach issues, like you can reverse it. You don't have to live with this. On even if Western medical doctors say we don't know what to do, we can't give you a diagnosis. It doesn't matter. Don't even go to them.
Yeah.
Just do a few healing protocols until you find what works for you.
Yeah. Just don't give up.
Yeah.
Any words for men who might feel lost and discouraged or emotionally disconnected, even from their
Yeah.
bodies?
I think most of us men feel emotionally disconnected uh, in on some level, because as kids, as boys, we're told to not cry, to suck it up, to be a man, which means to not emote. Emotions, all emotions, even softer emotions, are a part of the human experience. And so, if you're not allowing parts of yourself to express those, if you're not connecting to those parts of yourself and letting trusted individuals see those parts of you, then they're just going to keep screaming at you inside that message of you're not enough, there's something wrong with you, of of just frustration.
Yeah.
Screw this, everything, everyone's out to get me, whatever. It looks so different for each person, but those emotions are just going to stay really intense until you connect with them. And it's hard to do. It's a lifelong process. All the really wise internal family systems clinicians, and Dick Schwartz, the founder, he's still in process. We're all going to be in process. But yeah, diet can help a lot, but diet's not the ultimate answer when it
Mm.
comes to emotional healing and relational healing. That takes time, it takes work, it takes courage. So just, yeah, like you said, just keep at it with
Mm-hmm.
that. It's a lifelong process. Uh, Show yourself a lot of grace throughout that process
Mm-hmm.
because it's intense, and but the experience of connection with yourself and then with your loved ones when you take those courageous steps uh, is completely worth it. Because for
Mm-hmm.
me, that's what I'm all about in my life is connecting with people on that deep emotional intimate level, and that comes getting to know myself, all the parts of me that have been hurt and that are stuck.
I love it.
Yeah.
So beautiful. Thank you so much, Andy, for sharing your story. It's a really a really important, I think, story to share to give people the kind of phases of what can happen along the journey. And it's really common to see kind of a similar situation happen with the second guessing. Is this really going to help? Maybe I won't commit to the diet. And then you commit, you see amazing healing, but it's not. Maybe there's parts of you that would even be let down, that not everything gets fixed on the diet. And then towards the end, you realize, oh wait, the diet was amazing and it's not worth, getting rid of completely. But there's other things too that I need to work on, maybe to help myself. And yeah, thanks for sharing that so beautifully and inspiring so many people. Thank you.
Yeah, and I just think one more thing I'll say, and just to echo, just keep trying things.
Mm,
Uh, this modern context is so hard on our bodies, on our relationships, on our bodies. We have so many chemicals we're exposed to, from household chemicals to glyphosate, to these really harsh pesticides that are sprayed on our food, to antibiotics that are nuclear bombs in our guts, to chronic stress. There's so much that we contend with in this modern context, and just keep taking a small step at a time, and some big steps too, and just keep learning and experimenting, and don't let the uh, polarization of the diet wars get in the way of you experimenting too, because we've tried a lot and have figured out what works well for us, and been for us. And I think what was worked for us, I mean, I know has worked for a lot of other people too, but it's not the only approach. the
mm,
the the gaps, the paleo ketogenic diet is kind of what we've anchored our eating in. But some people, even though I don't think a vegan raw fruitarian diet or a carnivore diet are great long-term solutions for anyone, I think that the answer is somewhere in between for everyone. So don't let the polarization, the diet wars, the dogma get in the way of you healing. Connect with these parts of you that want to be extreme and rigid, and see why they're doing that. There's a
mm,
reason that this part of you is doing that,
mm,
and then shift to the gray
mm.
and trying something more in the middle, because it's my bias that that's very likely going to be more supportive to your body.
Yeah, we have to be flexible.
Flexibility. It's
Yeah.
important. Yeah.
I love that. Thank you so much again.
All
Yay.
right. Thanks, Natalie.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.